having a focus that's looking one place and not another, or kind of compartmentalizing ourselves, I suppose. And I think that the way that we pay and the way that different financial products actually are available to us actually makes it worse than what it otherwise might be.
Welcome to the Cash and Kerry podcast, where we help you make wiser financial decisions and build better money habits to increase your wealth, health, and happiness. Today we're talking about how the cost of living and inflation are changing our mindset around money. Our financial situations may have changed, and many of us haven't felt this kind of pressure before. Maybe it's a little debt, or maybe you just can't seem to get ahead. If this sounds like you, I have a treat for you today. I've got two behavioral scientists to help us navigate this new normal with proven ways to help. Hilscher is a vice president at BEworks, and Juan Camilo Salcedo is the regional director in Latin America at BEworks. You're going to learn about 4 financial trends that may be holding you back and how to fix them. So let's do this. Michelle and Juan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us. We're really excited.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure.
I always love having a behavioral scientist here because you guys tell us what's really going on with our money.
Absolutely. It's really nice to be here and to be able to talk about some of the hidden biases and other things that people don't necessarily know is, influencing their behavior.
We're going to reveal all. Okay, let's jump right in. So the first question I have is, things have really changed since the pandemic. The cost of living is making it really hard to live. And now with inflation and interest rates on the rise, we really seem to have less and less money. Has our mindset changed over this time?
I think I can start there for us. And what we've been realizing is that, there's 2 things that are happening. Number one, we have biases and we have different shortcuts that we always use, no matter the conditions, no matter the environment, no matter what the market's doing. And those things are happening, and they have been happening through the pandemic. And so they have predictable kind of outcomes that we're seeing that mean that we're very similar despite what's gone on during the pandemic. But then there are other things that have, I think, made certain biases more pronounced than normal, maybe because of the pandemic, and sort of shifted the way that we relate to money and what we're actually doing with that money. For example, if we're thinking about, credit, then if we're looking in Canada, for an example, what we would see is that, we've got folks who've actually seen some success, maybe not success that they've necessarily had in the past when it comes to paying off money that they have spent and loans that they owe against. And so I think what it means is that we've got folks who are feeling maybe more optimistic than normal, maybe a little bit more competent than usual as they're looking at, what might be coming in the year in front of us. So that's a good thing. And I think if we're looking maybe more in LATAM, which is where Juan's located, then what we're seeing is that during the pandemic, as people were, kind of thinking about how to use their money, that there were some changes that happened there too. And that is with regards to, maybe paying not with credit, but actually looking at alternative ways of paying. And so I think folks were maybe a bit more experimental and trying to pay in ways that weren't usual for them. And I think what that means is that maybe they're more likely to try other types of financial behaviors that they normally would not. So it could be something that we can capitalize on, taking advantage of people's flexibility of mind.
And if I can just jump in and build on what Michelle just mentioned, in Latin America in particular, there's 2 components that play a big role. First, the large economy that is not formal, the informal economy, where a lot of low-income individuals in particular work. And secondly, a growing participation of fintechs. So especially middle and low-income individuals have been taking advantage of these alternative modes of payment, of acquiring funds to purchase the things that they want, and that has been playing a big role. But I think something that is sort of transversal, that captures everywhere in the world, the global economy, is the worry that is coming for the next year, right? We're coming out of a pandemic, coupled with the sort of global instability precipitated by the situation in Ukraine and Russia. And now there seems to be a looming global tightening of credit and of funds. And so that's going to be something that is going to be on people's minds. And so that also starts to build on what we call scarcity mindset. The scarcity mindset where we start to feel, even at this point where we might not feel like there's less cash in our account and less money in our account, that starts to play an important role. And it can be monetary scarcity mindset, so scarcity of funds, but it can also be that you're busy trying to get another job, you have less time, so scarcity of time, and scarcity of cognitive resources also happens as a result of all these different types of scarcity mindsets, and that has a direct and oftentimes detrimental impact on our financial decision making.
Right. I remember you guys, some of your research, you also talk about things like tunneling that can also be a part of the scarcity mindset and dealing with like the present bias. What are these?
Yeah.
Certainly. So what happens when you're in a scarcity mindset is that you're only focused on the funds that you have now, your necessities, your needs in the moment. And so what that brings about is as you mentioned, a tunneling effect, where you fail to take into account other alternatives, other options, other solutions maybe to the problems that you have, other solutions to your financial conundrums. And so that has a negative impact on your overall decision making. And likewise, the present bias, where you're just focused on what you need right now. What do I need right now? And you fail to put into perspective what you might need in the future. So there is a sort of focusing on present needs at the detriment of future needs.
Right. I got a nice example there actually from some of the work that we've done. I don't know, Kerry, if you've ever like taken advantage of one of those retrofit programs, but some governments will say, if you install new windows, we'll give you back some of what you spent. Or if you get a more eco-friendly furnace, then we'll pay back some of what it costs to buy and install that. So we've worked with clients who are running these programs, and what they find is that a lot of people are not actually taking advantage of money that's on the table for them to claim if they go through with something like this type of retrofit. And what we realized there is that a lot of times it's households, right, who have this kind of scarcity mindset that's determining for them where they look for solutions if they're cash strapped. And where they're not looking is typically these kinds of programs, because they maybe just aren't on those folks' horizons. Like they just don't recognize that it's an option. So that's kind of tunneling, where you just don't see the solution. But then the other issue is that there's a real fear that if you apply for this, that it'll take a long time. You're going to have people coming to your house. It's maybe not going to be a really fast and simple process to get the money reimbursed. And so that sort of anticipated hassle is something that is really off-putting, and it makes people feel like, I'm already losing time in other parts of my life. I'm already maybe losing hours, which I could spend working, that could help to offset my financial concerns. Am I going to make that worse for myself by applying for this program? And so we actually did some research, and what we found is that you really have to make immediate benefits obvious to these folks, because they're super present biased. And so you can't say to them, in a few months, the money will be reimbursed, and you'll also see savings on your gas bill or your energy utilization. It's just not enough. And instead, it's like, let's emphasize to folks that immediately you'll have a quieter furnace, you'll have a warmer home. It's immediate comforts that you'll feel. And we found that that was very, very helpful rather than trying to emphasize the money that you get in time.
I actually used one of these programs years ago, and
Okay.
it's true. It's hard to like, think about how it's going to benefit. But because my husband and I are science people, the first thing we did is we built a spreadsheet to see, how this could work. And I know that that's an unusual approach, but just let me say, if anyone out there is facing one of these programs, it's actually really easy to do. And it's true, everything is quieter, and the windows are sealed better, so there's less cold in the house. But that's a great program. Juan, you were going to mention something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you can also leverage other behavioral principles to counter that tunneling and that scarcity mindset. And one that we're actually testing right now in a project in Latin America is leveraging loss aversion to optimize debt collection and also to help folks better manage their debt. So by making it very salient what you can lose by not being on time with your debt repayment, that really motivates people to get with the plan, get on that payment schedule. So what we're trying out and we're testing out right now is with low and middle income individuals, letting them know very clearly what can they stand to lose in terms of maybe things that they could acquire, things that they could purchase if they don't keep their credit card payments. So that's another behavioral principle that can be leveraged, leveraging that loss aversion. What do you stand to lose? Why? Because losses, have a sort of a greater psychological pain on us that gain. So what do you stand to lose by not being on top of your debt management? That can be a powerful tool.
Right. That sounds very helpful. Let's jump into question 2. The way we spend has changed so much, right? We're shopping a lot more online, and well, I'm using a lot less cash, and I know everyone must be too, because we have credit cards and PayPal and Apple Pay, and I can't keep up with all the other e-wallets because there's a lot of different ways to pay online. Do these different methods of payment influence our spending?
I think they do. I think for the simple reason that, when you pay in a way that's intangible, it's not painful. So it makes it much easier to pay out and, maybe buy more than what you really should. Yeah.
Should I want more pain when I'm paying? I mean, I like a little pain, but not too much pain.
I think a little bit of pain goes a long way when it comes to trying to keep people on track with how much they want to pay, what their budget might be. Absolutely.
And there have been a number of studies that kind of illustrate this point, how that pain of paying differs between different payment methods. So researchers have found, for example, when comparing cash to credit card payments, that you're less likely to recall and actually more likely to underestimate how much people spend on a recent purchase when doing it with a credit card versus doing it with cash. So that sort of psychological effect that paying with cash versus credit card, for example, is very real, very vivid.
So going back to our old question, or like the first thing we were talking about. So that was, how we maybe have changed behaviors during the pandemic. And we've definitely changed the spending categories in which we splurge. And I think much of it is a product of the fact that we've been locked up in our homes, and there's certain things, certain activities we can't do, right? So we've spent more on maybe goods for our homes than we have on travel. And that means that we've spent more in categories that are tangible, where there's like a leave behind that's very obvious in our homes. I think what that actually means is that there's a different way that we maybe think about the debt that we owe on those objects as compared to the debt we might owe on experiences like travel. And so the way that we pay, I think, really then connects to the way in which we repay. And my suspicion, and I don't know that there's necessarily research on this yet, is that because we've spent and splurged a lot in the last few months on these durable goods, that we might actually be in a better place to be able to pay them off than if we'd spent a whole lot of money on things that are intangible, like, meals on the go or Uber. And these are things that we're seeing in our homes, right? It's like I'm paying down the money on my couch or my rug or my barbecue. And it's kind of like very salient reminders of what we've spent that might be motivating and have us pay back faster even, maybe.
Well, we're also, I've read through some of your research, and it seems that we're not really rational when it comes to paying off this debt. We're more inclined to pay off a lower balance. Is this really happening? We're not thinking logically of which card to hit up first.
That's absolutely true. That's the debt account aversion bias. That's a mouthful, but what it really
is
that we want to feel like we're making progress. And so if we have, a single account, then yeah, we'll put all of our possible payments towards that account. If we've got multiple accounts though, we might in a logical way ask ourselves, well, if I, what account do I pick to put my limited funds towards? And I should be picking the account that has the highest rate of interest. But maybe what I actually do is I pick the account where the amount that's outstanding is really small and easy for me to pay off, so that I can say I wiped away some of the accounts that I've got against my name. And in the long term, that's not the best thing to do, though in the moment, it's very motivating.
Right. So is it okay, or should we be hitting up the highest interest, or is it good to have, something motivating to get it off the books?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I think if we're looking at just the criterion of getting a payment done, that I think in some ways, maybe having just, a small amount that you can pay back and wiping away a single debt is serving as almost like a foot in the door for people. So it might actually be something that motivates people to continue with paying down debt. Though in the grand scheme of things, I still think that, we want to be able to figure out how to nudge people to pay off the accounts where they stand to lose the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I agree with Michelle. I think that paying off that small debt can serve as a motivator, but we also have to be very careful of potential what we call licensing effects. Just because we pay off that small debt, maybe on a credit card that we have, which is the smallest one, then we sort of feel like we did something good, and then we owe ourselves some splurging or some pleasure. And those are like compensating psychological effects that happen, but that can be negative for the individual. If they decide to pay the smallest debt that they have, they might incur in that overspending behavior down the line, which is in the end detrimental to their financial health.
Oh, I think I've done that. I've given myself some permission. It's like, I did good over here. Okay, now I'm going to have some fun over here. I've totally done that. My bad. So I guess when you have also all these different areas of credit cards that are now in play, or e-wallets, it's really hard to see how all these debts work together. They're not really visible now, are they? They're just kind of scattered all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're really good at in our lives, having a focus that's looking one place and not another, or, kind of compartmentalizing ourselves, I suppose. And I think that the way that we pay and the way that different financial products actually are available to us actually makes it worse than what it otherwise might be.
So this is going to be ongoing. We're going to have more and more ways to pay beyond cash, of course. Are there any solutions that we can use to help us when it comes to all this intangibility of payments?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is where, we go back to that idea of tying it to the initial purchase or tying it to that experience, as opposed to trying to get people to think about all of the different accounts that they've got. And that way they can feel like they're making some progress. It's not necessarily that they're paying, $200 towards a number of these different accounts, but instead that they've paid for that $200, bicycle or whatever it would be.
Anything to add, Juan?
Yeah, I think that setting time to sort of, I mean, this is going to sound a little bit cliche, but any way you can make these things more tangible for yourself, be that, writing it out or remembering how those little expenditures add up to your overall debt, can definitely put those things, top of mind for you and kind of increase the pain that you feel. But that's actually what we want. And that's actually a motivator to get people to, pay on time, get on top of their debt management. So trying different ways to make it tangible. Again, be that if you want to use physical envelopes, and put those different accounts in different envelopes that you have available to you in a visual manner, that can help. Any kind of reminder, be that you can leverage your iPhone, your cell phone to provide reminders of your spending, that can help.
Okay, so like putting your iPhone receipt or cost in an envelope and kind of chunking it. Then you've got groceries in this envelope or your new bike in this envelope. So when you see like it's $600, then you can, okay, that money goes on the credit card because that was the purpose I bought it for. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. That's exactly what Juan's getting at. I think another thing to mention, and I think it's because it's timely to mention it, right? We're coming up towards the end of the year. And what we know is that when people are anticipating a big change in the year, New Year's is coming, 2023 is just around the corner, that there is actually something that happens to us where we feel like we're turning a new page and there's an opportunity for us to be better than the past self. So I think knowing that it's possible for us to kind of plan out how we want to be next year, or plan out how we want to be now that, we're moving beyond having turned a particular age, for instance, it's been a birthday. And so the fresh start effect is really what that's all about, and trying to set yourself up with maybe a plan, an implementation plan that you're going to carry through on. That can help as well.
Okay.
Something else maybe, sorry.
No, go ahead. I love
something else that you could consider is leveraging the social power that your peers have. And your peers can serve as sort of guards of your commitments. So if you make your commitment to have a better debt management next year and take advantage of what Michelle was just mentioning, the fresh start effect, say 2023 is the year that I get my credit card debt management right, and you make it public and you say, Kerry, Michelle, you're going to be my guardians. You're going to be there to make sure that I make good on my commitment to be on top of my credit card. That is a further motivator to engage in that behavior that I have an intention to engage in, but that I actually want to breach that say-do gap. I want to become better at debt management, but if I have that social support from my peers, and they're every now and then reminding me, how are you doing with this? That's going to be an additional catalyst to bring in that intention into actual behavior.
Right. So a commitment contract with your friends will help you get over this gap, the intention action gap or the say-do gap. At the same time, we want more pain. So maybe our friends can also bring that pain as well if we're not meeting that commitment.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be overt pain. You can still have your friends be very nice to you, but just the mere fact of them reminding you of asking you, how are you doing with your plans for 2023, of being on top of your debt management, that actually works as a motivator to work and actually do those or engage in those behaviors that will get you to the place where you want to be financially.
Okay, we want to be there financially for sure. So if there's any friends out there, get together and help each other with repaying all these different debts. So let's go into trend 3, and it's one that just boggles my mind because it's everywhere now. It's the buy now, pay later microloans. I call them buy now, pay forever because I'm not really certain that everyone's paying them off. But they're everywhere. You can use them for groceries, electronics, and makeup. I mean, you can use these loans to buy lipstick. They're everywhere. Do the buy now, pay later loans influence our spending? I mean, they must have some effect because they're just so enticing to click.
Absolutely. I mean, they tap into our present bias for sure. It makes it so much easier to pay for something that otherwise we might not be able to. And I think that if we, look at people holistically, right? So we know that folks have credit cards. We know that folks are also maybe paying with buy now, pay later as well. Then we realize that it's a bit of a competition here, and people have to figure out, well, what's the trade-off? If I can't pay everything off this month, then what is going to be the focus of my attention? What's going to get my money? And so I think that's where buy now, pay later is going to run into trouble because, these are purchases that are often, the smaller ticket items, right? It's the cosmetics, it's the clothing. It's not necessarily the large household purchase that you might be making on your credit card. So that goes back to the point we were talking about, right? Tangibility. And if something's not there to remind you of the purchase, then it doesn't stick in memory, and it's perhaps not the thing that you look to pay off immediately. Whereas seeing it sitting in your living room, it reminds you, yeah, I got to pay that down. The other thing is that, from what I understand, buy now, pay later doesn't offer rewards like cash back or loyalty. So I think that means, in comparison to something like a credit card where you owe money, that, it's maybe just not the front burner priority for folks, because they'd like to make sure that they preserve good standing with lenders where there's some other reward or benefit that's being offered to them. So that's certainly what we've been thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I see with buy now, pay later, you can kind of extend and smooth out that payment too, which you can't really do with a credit card. The downside is if you miss a payment, then suddenly you're just walloped with all these fees. And especially if you have so many of these microloans on the go, I'm guessing it's hard to like they're just little compartments. It's hard to see the overall viewpoint of, where you are at with your loans.
Yeah, I think that people have a hard time anticipating just how difficult it's going to be, right? If you think about making that one purchase, then you think about having to make that sequence of repayments for that one thing, not realizing they're going to juggle multiple different purchases that they've made. There was some research that we came across which said that, people, 43% of buy now, pay later users are actually late on a payment. And I bet if you talk to these folks before they made the payment, that they would, or, made the purchase, that they would never expect that. And I think it kind of speaks to like an atypicality neglect, which is something that a lot of us fall prey to. And that's where we just imagine that, the future will be typical. It will have no surprises. And therefore, we'll be able to manage our finances pretty easily because of that. And perhaps that folks are ignoring the things that come up that are unexpected, that actually mean that they have less money available to make those payments because, they're spending money because they've got family that came into town for a visit, or because they have to take their cat to the vet. So I know, God forbid.
It happens, Cats get sick.
Happen. But yeah, so those are, certain types of biases that are impacting people's decisions. And of course, there's things that we can do to help. We don't want to just point out that these are the predictable biases that sort of trip us up. So a really simple thing that's been found to help people as they're deciding what matters to them when they get a credit product or when they maybe are embarking on a buy now, pay later purchase is to have them imagine what could be different next month, and maybe have them look at, well, last month, were there any experiences that you had that you didn't expect that maybe incurred more costs than you'd anticipated and budgeted for? And getting people to imagine, that future based on actual experiences that have surprised them gets them to build more of a buffer into their budgets, which would be good, and it'll help them to keep on track, I imagine, with buy now, pay later repayments.
Juan, do you have something you want to add?
Just that these buy now, pay later have been growing explosively in Latin America, and they do have a definite impact on people's financial decisions. Again, just to echo what Michelle said, because it's sort of like impulse buying, like when you're at the supermarket and you're at the cash register and you don't really need it, but you see that chocolate bar, which is very high calorie, but you don't think about how it's going to impact your diet or your well-being, your health in the long term. You're just driven by your need right now, your craving right now. And so these buy now, pay later systems, what they do is they tap into that. They tap into the present bias. They tap into the scarcity mindset. Sometimes you need them, but what you should do is you have to try, as Michelle was pointing out, through these tactics, through thinking about what has been surprising about the past that could actually extrapolate into the future and make your life a bit more complex going down the line. How is that going to impact my life if I decide to engage with one of these buy now, pay later systems?
I see this with budgeting too. People don't think about the atypical payments. They're optimistic when they make their budget and they're like, oh, perfect. And then something always happens because there's always something, right? It could be a cat, you may need winter tires. Yep. Your kid may need to go on a field trip. Like all these so-called random expenses actually happen quite frequently. So it feels very much like that to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And I think that's the challenge, right? Is that people just don't expect those sorts of expenses, even though, I mean, they always happen every month in some shape or fashion. And then what that means is that it comes out of the money that they could be spending to pay back debt.
To pay back the loan. Now, yeah. I've read also something that can help is something you guys have called mental time travel.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I think time traveling sounds like fun, but it's actually a solution to dealing with all these loans.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of decision making about our finances involves thinking about the future, and we're terrible at it. We don't really have the ability most of the time to put ourselves into the shoes, the life experiences that our future selves will be having. So that means that we just don't do the things right now that we should be to help them out. And that can be, not paying down what we owe right now to ensure that they're financially secure in the future, or maybe not saving for retirement and assuming that they'll be fine down the road. So mental time travel is something that's come out of the research of a number of different scholars, including Hal Hirschfield. So he very famously created an experimental paradigm where, imagine this, you take an image of your face, and then it goes through a little bit of a morph. And all of a sudden, you're able to see what you're going to look like when you're 80. And you're asked, well, how much will you, put away in terms of retirement savings for that person? And when you're looking at that aged face, you're far more generous than if you're looking at just an image of what you currently look like. So what we've done in some of our research is ask the question of whether that's the only way that you can actually have that future self effect take place. Do we always have to be confronted with that aged face? Or are there maybe questions that we can have people ask themselves? Is it possible that maybe people write a letter to their future selves, and in that way they do the time travel that they need to empathize and really, put themselves into those shoes, and realize, I think crucially, that the things you value right now, who you are right now, what you care about, who you spend time with, those are going to be consistent. That's who you will be in the future. And I think we lie to ourselves because we think in the future we'll value different things. We'll be able to compromise in different ways than maybe we're comfortable with right now.
So my last question is all about personal finance apps. I am emailed daily and asked to review all these different apps. They're all for different things. Some are for spending, savings. A lot of them are for budgeting. Nowadays, a lot of them are for investing, and they're like all over the place. And I always say no because I had a hunch that your research played into this. So there are some surprising risks to using all these personal finance apps.
Yes, there are. I think that one of the most problematic parts of it is that people compartmentalize, and we are very naturally looking for excuses for ourselves, right? So licensing. If we do a little bit of something over here to help ourselves, then we don't necessarily download an app that helps us with something like credit management or debt management, right? If we're helping ourselves with retirement planning, for example. So I think what an ideal state would be is to have an app that helps us to adapt or adopt more of a holistic approach to our financial lives and see the way that financial behaviors, many of them, need to be enacted if we're going to actually be healthy. Absolutely.
Something additional to that tends to happen with these finance apps is something that I also see a lot of people struggling with dieting apps, where again, licensing effects have an important impact. And it's because you decide, I want to have this change in my life. So what I do is I download the app, but then I don't act upon it. I don't actually engage in the behavior that is being suggested to engage. Just because I downloaded the app, I feel like I've done enough, and that's where the buck stops. So that has a potential, negative downside to these numerous financial apps.
I think I've done that too. Maybe I just don't like the app, but no, I've definitely felt like I've accomplished so much just by finding the right app that suits my needs. I load it up and I'm like, done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what is it we can do? I mean, we're inundated with all these different financial institutions, fintechs that want us to use their platform, that are encouraging us that they have the best, latest, greatest thing. I don't know how to counter this. I mean, I'm like, get all the apps or get none of the apps, right?
Yes, I think, one of the things that I would recommend is, firstly, for these apps, they should be taking advantage of the fact that people will set and forget, right? That we can definitely hand things over to the app in terms of our decision making for the most part. And I think a good app is going to have, some defaults that we can set up for ourselves. So, there's an automatic contribution that is taking place every month that I have said yes to. But we've got to make sure that we go beyond that within any of these apps, because chances are you'll just allow that to be what is making the financial future happen for you, and you don't go above and beyond. So an idea such as maybe an impulse savings prompt could be something that you would see in an app that's supposed to help with savings behavior, for instance, where you try to capitalize on the fact that people have made the effort to download the app. They've made the effort to set up the automatic contributions for themselves. That obviously must mean that they care about their savings behaviors, that they care about retirement planning. And therefore, if you can have them kind of remember that that's who they are, and that's why they downloaded the app in the first place. That's why they set up those automatic, contribution rules in the first place. Then you might be able to get them to be a little bit more generous and do a little bit more for themselves. And that's where we're not relying on a habit, which is perhaps what, these apps can help us to encourage, and instead are actually getting people to do things a little bit more spontaneously at times. And I think that can encourage people to, spend more or save more than they might otherwise.
And just to complement what Michelle just mentioned, I think the first step, not only with finance apps, but with everything that we've been talking about, with the intangibility of certain forms of payment, for example, with scarcity mindset, with present bias, is being aware that you're susceptible to these biases. Just the fact that you know that you're susceptible to these things and you keep them top of mind can help you to counter some of their negative effects. The rest, as we all like to say, we have to embed them into the choice architecture, the way that people make these financial decisions, and the platforms and the environments in where they're making them. But certainly a very good first step is knowing that you're susceptible to these things, that when money or time is scarce, then you might not be making your best financial decision, that you might be present bias and tunneling, keeping alternatives out or solutions out, that finance apps have to be taken in sort of a comprehensive manner so that you don't compartmentalize and start saving, at the detriment of maybe repaying some credit card debt. So being really aware of all of these present biases, cognitive biases, is really the first step. Right.
And not allow ourselves just to be so siloed into these different areas that the financial institutions want us to focus on, see how they interplay. And I was thinking about the defaults. Like, I know some of these apps set you up as a default to save 5% or 7%. You can put it in there. And it really is easy to set it and forget it and think, hey, I could actually be contributing more in the future, right? If you get a raise, then who's to say you can't change that default and save more? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set definite notifications every few months to say, hey, can you do better now? Can you contribute more to your retirement? Can you contribute more to your emergency fund? Can you contribute more to your fund, right? Or just save, because we don't have to always have a goal. Is that the kind of thing that we can do to nudge ourselves to change this default and to beat the war on these apps?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, because we're not just thinking about a one-time behavior, right? We're thinking about a journey, a behavioral journey, and setting ourselves up for success in that way. I think that's one of the big things that we're aspiring to do more of as behavioral scientists, is to help people and help institutions to build out those journeys, because we realize that what serves you well in a particular moment in your life probably is not actually helping you once things have changed a little bit or time has passed. And yet we know that people have this tremendous status quo bias, right? Like, we like what's familiar, we like what's served us well in the past. So we need to figure out, how do we break in to people's lives at the right times and give them the right cues to ask themselves, is it time to make the change yet? And to build into the first steps of the journey, the expectation that you'll need to change as you move along. Because I think the problem perhaps for people is that they feel like if they set themselves up, this solution is evergreen and it will be all that I need. This app will be all that I need, instead of realizing that maybe this app will help me with one part of my journey, and then I need to graduate and I need to move to a different app or a different product, a different solution, a different kind of advice, perhaps even.
Okay, I'm setting my notifications in my calendar every 3 months just to check in to make sure I'm still on track, and not letting the apps, create a permanent default that won't work for me in the future. So I think that is definitely an easy thing we can all do, and we should do it. Okay. So I always have a final question I like to sneak in, and it's usually the most interesting one whatsoever. Is there anything we've missed that you'd like to add? Like anything that makes your heart sing, something that can help people, or something you just find interesting? And you're all quiet.
I know. I was thinking about the remark that you had just made was really where I wanted to go, because I think that taking that perspective of it needs to be a journey rather than a one-time behavior is, what I'm seeing across a lot of the projects that we're doing, whether it's in the area of debt repayment or, advice or retirement planning, for instance. And I think that, people just convince themselves that the solution that served them is the solution that is going to always be good for them. Something else I think that's really interesting, and it does come out of what we experienced during the pandemic, is the social aspect of all of this. I feel that there has oftentimes been a social taboo where people are afraid to talk about money, or they're afraid to have certain types of money conversations, right? I mean, yes, maybe we talk about retirement planning with our families, but how often maybe are we having conversations about debt? And I think that during the pandemic, what we saw is that these are the sorts of conversations that became de rigueur. They were really more common than what they had been, because many people in our communities, ourselves included, maybe were experiencing the financial uncertainty and really just overall uncertainty in our lives that opened it up. So I think that what we must not lose sight of is that we are influenced not only by biases that we've talked about today, but also very obviously by experiences that we've been having, and that the pandemic has been this force that has changed our relationship with money, our relationship with others in relationship to money, and that's an area that we can perhaps take advantage of when it comes to strategies that we might be using ourselves, or conversations we might be wanting to have or continue with those in our lives. So that's something that I think is a big area of promise.
And I think just to sort of build on what Michelle said, people tend to think that especially with behavioral economics and behavioral science, there's always sort of a silver bullet solution to problematic financial decision making, and it's really not. It's a matter of focusing on the particular context and building upon tactics and building upon strategy and building really a comprehensive solution that draws upon these different behavioral principles. And that's what we often really work with and do with our clients. We build comprehensive solutions that draw upon bits and pieces of different behavioral research, be that scarcity mindset, be that present bias, be that focusing on your future self, leveraging loss aversion, et cetera, leveraging reminders and how you input them into your individual life. That's really up to you and what works for you. How can you make things more salient? How can you make them more digestible, by chunking? How can you set reminders that work for you? How can you make things a bit more tangible so that pain of buying becomes a bit more real for you? Not too real, but real enough. How maybe you leverage your friends and your peers to help you stay committed to those financial goals. Those are all principles, and the right recipe and the right mixture of all of those really is, a case-by-case thing.
Right. And this is what you do at BEworks. You work specifically with companies to help them narrow down to what's really happening within their business.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Michelle and Juan, for joining me today and helping us improve our financial behavior with a little bit of nudges, a lot of science, and a whole lot of knowledge. Thank you so much, Michelle and Juan.
Thanks so much for having us. It was great fun.
Thank you very much, Kerry. It was a real treat.
Thank you. Okay, talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on the Cash and Carry podcast. I really value your time here. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so now. And if you could drop a review on your podcasting platform, I would really appreciate it because it helps other people find us. Thank you. I see Michelle. We should let her in.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm friendly that way. Okay, come play with us, Michelle.